Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Through the Glass Columns, your weekly Wheel of Time read-along podcast. I, of course, am your host, Tylor, who is rested and relaxed because my good buddy Greg, who also happens to co-host the show, recently hosted me to play board games at his family cottage. It was the best. Greg, I just needed to show my appreciation somewhere where more than two people would hear me. How are you, and what did you think about the reading this week?
Well, and it's also an explanation of why we're delayed in recording, which doesn't really matter to listeners other than we'll see how well I remember things and how well I did just read these chapters, right, before I read them yesterday. But at the same time, it was like a long gap in between. So I'm good. I'm excited to talk about these a little bit more. I don't know. It felt like a week where we got some plot, but also like I don't know, it didn't seem all that important. So maybe you'll help me understand why it's really important as time goes on.
I don't know if I can do that even a little bit, but what I can do is provide context for a couple of things. I think these are chapters where there's definitely things that are easy to miss because there's kind of a lot of moving parts kind of going on simultaneously. We, of course, are talking about Chapter 9, A Cup of Tea, and Chapter 10, A Plan Succeeds, both from Book 9 of the Wheel of Time, that is Winter's Heart. And we've got a fairly short one by my notes and then a much longer one, but both of these are chapters that deal with Elayne, which I don't think I'm telling tales out of school if I say this is not either of our favorite plot lines at the moment. What are you kind of hoping for out of this plot? If it is what it is right now, what we read, what is your dream? I need some question to ask you before we dive into summary.
Well, I will say I don't remember what we said at the end of last week, but for whatever reason, I went into these two chapters assuming the first was about Elayne and then we would be moving on. And I thought, wow, that's a really great cliffhanger. And then I was like, oh, it wasn't a cliffhanger, really. Like we just picked that up right away. So I don't know. I think you probably just said, at least the first is about Elayne or something like that. And I interpreted that in my memory as only one will be about Elayne. So, yeah, I mean, again, it feels like there's actually a pretty significant event here, but like I don't know that I cared too much by the end of this, and I think I'm interested in spinning off and going into another plot line soon. So hopefully we'll do so. But it's really just more of the same here. Court intrigue. There's a traitor. There's bad forces. And she's beset on all sides. But also like a couple really weird kind of curveball rumors and such that I'm sure we'll unpack. So I suspect this is, in hindsight, we might be able to, or on the reread like you might be able to say, oh, that's the first mention of something that is actually going to be really important. But to me as a first-time reader, I'm just like, okay, some rumors, got it.
Man, I was gonna make a joke about how you just like don't like female characters and so you're out on Elayne, and then you left me just the juicy little bit of like you still have faith that good things are gonna happen in this plot eventually. Like we'll see how that goes in Chapter 9, A Cup of Tea. Elayne prepares for her meetings, and then she meets with Halwyn Nori, who reports on the discovery of a valuable mineral which solves her concerns with the bankers and provides the necessary funds that they need to continue to run the city. He also reports on Elida's proclamation, which Elayne says Rand will never accept, but it seems that Halwyn Nori thinks that he may already have done so given the way that the public is reacting to the rumors of this declaration. He also reports the attack on Cairhien Palace, and most of the news seems to be old, but some of the news does seem to touch on the fact that the borderland rulers are missing, and this seems especially notable to Elayne. They discuss Rodrin, who apparently intends to unite Murundi with the Band of the Red Hand's help, and at this point Elayne sends letters to the Cairhienan lords stating that she will stake her claim in Cairhien soon, but is unable to do so at the moment. Halwyn Nori seems impressed by the delicate way that she words her letter to support those in Cairhien without having any concession to the fact that she is the one who should be in charge. At this point, lunch is forced on her, and then Dylan reports that the Borderland army is passing through Andor. Elayne tastes something off in her tea and realizes that she has been dosed with fork root. 3 assassins then enter, and Dylan literally throws a chair at them before she is eventually stabbed, and then a guardsman saves Elayne at the last minute as Elayne passes out. So, as you say, an excellent cliffhanger, but we actually pick up at the other side of that cliff in one page. So, what did we think of A Cup of Tea?
Well, I will also say, I think when we read the 2 chapter names last week, I said something like, well, one of these sounds boring. And so there's a little bait and switch there that actually, I mean, the explanation in the next chapters is obviously a little more intriguing, but this is a pretty exciting chapter plot-wise, and certainly what I was referring to. So, yeah, I mean, this feels like the kind of thing where there's not a lot to say about the thing that matters and a lot to say about the things that I probably kind of skimmed through as I got there. But this is, I guess most of what I said before this summary applies to this, that it's these rumors that are a little intriguing, both in terms of the telephone game of how we know the true events that have been misinterpreted to get you Rand kneeling at the tower. And then there's also some other ones. I would say tops on my list is there's a big army coming, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, who's that?
And I think this is really the way we should approach this, is let's dive through these rumors one by one. That will be the majority of the chapter. And then we go, wow, good job, Robert Jordan, and move on to the next chapter. That's usually how action sequences work. So I just want to run through these rumors straight in order. Number 1, apparently Elayne owns an aluminum mine now, and that will fund the siege or war or whatever is coming next. What was your take on this, if anything? You're just excited we don't have to deal with economics for the next 4 books.
I was going to say Deus Ex Aluminum, I guess, which it was like a problem I either didn't know we had or hadn't remembered we had. And it's like, don't worry about it. Like, you're wealthy. We found some aluminum. There's also an old Bare Naked Ladies song. I think it's Bare Naked Ladies, and you definitely won't know. It's like a Bare Naked Ladies deep cut of that's like aluminium for me, aluminum for some, or maybe the opposite. And so whenever I read the word aluminum, I go, aluminum for me, aluminium for some. Thank you, deep Bare Naked Ladies fandom, which I have left behind but never will leave behind.
I did not know that there were Bare Naked Ladies deep cuts, much less that was one of them. So thank you for the education. I actually want to tie the next 2 rumors together because I had never quite put them next to each other before, and I think it's really interesting. So Nori brings the news of the report from Tar Valon that they say Rand is under their protection and anyone who wants to approach him should do so through the tower, kind of implying that he has bent the knee. And then the other item is the assassination attempt, where the Kyrianan palace has partially exploded. And the idea that one of those events would make people more likely to believe the tower's proclamation, I think is really interesting. And it's not something that I had kind of like considered what are the effect on the rumors of this attack that just happened at the end of the last book.
Well, and it seems a little funny to me because I'm still thinking all the way back to Dumais Well and the fact that that's where you'd think you'd get the rumor that they captured Rand and took him to the tower, because you would imagine there are people who are like, yeah, they left with him and we haven't seen him since, right? Like he hasn't been around. But it is interesting that what you said, the relationship that the weakening of the tower and the kind of show of a vulnerability makes people think, oh, he's not a god. He is somebody who might go have to bend a knee. Obviously, the most intriguing part to me is like, what is the goal of the tower in circulating this rumor? Or is it just a wild outlet? I mean, there's a statement at the heart of it. So there's clearly a scheme of some point, right?
That's correct.
Something.
And just a reminder, this was one of the things that Elviarin had put forward that Elida was hesitant to support, but Elviarin made her support by using her blackmail. So it's possible that this is straight out of the Black Aja playbook, right? If this is coming from Elviarin, it could be from Mizana or Mogadien or someone giving her orders to spread chaos. So I think you're right to say it is a scheme, but it's like simultaneously a little bit Elida's scheme and a little bit the Black Aja / the Forsaken scheme.
interesting. And, I think anything coming out of that tower, I just assume is evil at this point, right? Like,
Yeah.
recognizing that Elida is not herself evil, but that the larger forces are just totally in control there. So look
Yeah.
out.
I think that's
But
exactly
also,
right.
shouldn't there be a war there? Like, I land on that too. It's like, oh, if they're still issuing statements and so on, it's like, oh, we're not advancing that plot much, or they're still on a hill looking at the city they want to attack, not actually
Yeah,
attacking it.
we conspicuously don't mention what is happening in that plot at all in
Yeah.
hypothetically, say, the next chapter. The next thing that we get mention of here actually comes up a couple of times in this chapter, so I want to kind of bundle it all together. Early on, Halwyn Nori has rumors that the Borderlander rulers are missing, that there are people kind of ruling in their stead. And then later on in the chapter, we get the rumors of an army making its way through Andor, and Elayne says, oh, that's just the Borderlanders. So, as you said, this is literally a massive 4 country worth army making its way through Andor, but Elayne seems to be kind of assuming, like, oh, they're just here to talk to Rand or deal with Rand, and so it's not a problem for me. It feels like this big of a group of troops doesn't walk through the map without causing an explosion somewhere. What are you kind of expecting out of this newfound army in Andor?
Well, and there's even a gesture at some point where they say, like, well, maybe it's a gift from Rand. Like, Rand sending them to help
Yeah.
you. It's like, yeah, I don't think it's going to be that easy as time goes on here. So, I think last week or the week before, I was like, remember how Lan is like the ruler of the borderland? Like, it feels like that is maybe then going to become more of a part of this, because if this is a hostile group, one would assume Lan could intervene in some way if he's not busy putting his hand in Nynaeve's back pocket.
He is.
Yeah. I mean, great military leaders can do both, right? So that's intriguing to me as like a strand we're going to pull. And again, I think it's just we have gone so long without talking about up there. And when we were there in book 1 and the very beginning of book 2, it's like, it felt very much like Game of Thrones, where it's like, there's people at the wall guarding this constant threat. And it's like, well, as the darkness and the bubbles and all that has strengthened, like, what's happening up there? Could that group have overwhelmed the Trollocs? They're Trollocs up there? That's who was up there? Could they have come through and overwhelmed those kingdoms? Could this be refugees, not an army, but people fleeing or something? I think it's all possible.
I forget if it was the beginning of this book or last book. We had actually seen the gathering of the 4 rulers from the Borderlands, and their concern was like, are we taking too many troops away from the actual border itself? And so I think you're right to be asking both, like, is this the army we expect it to be? And what are they kind of leaving behind if this kind of numbers are being taken out of the Borderlands? I think that's exactly the right kind of path to be going down. The last item that I have here is Rodrin. He is someone who we had very briefly met like a book and a half ago when Egwene was meeting people at the border of Andor, and he seems to be a lord whose goal is to take the city-states of Murundi and unite them into a country. And Elayne in this chapter is like, awesome. That's going to be something that will distract all my rivals. This isn't a big deal. It's not like you should like recognize the name Rodrin. The only real link we have here to something we care about is that Rodrin seems to be using the Band of the Red Hand with Telmanis to accomplish his goal of becoming king.
Well, and you, Tyler, can see on video, I flipped to the map just to make sure I understand. So Murundi is a kind of set of provinces within Andor, but to the south.
Yeah, it's kind of on the southwest. I think it's technically not a part of Andor, but it sounds like there is like territory that is disputed between Andor and Murundi. So it's kind of like a fuzzy border, but in theory they're separate. But it sounds like historically Andor has still kind of been the power there because Murundi was so divided, and Rodrin might break that up if he's able to actually unite Murundi.
Well, and I'm noting that it's very close to Ilion, which would be all distracted over at the Tyr border, right? So, like, there's kind of territory there. I don't know. Sometimes on this map, the lines for roads and the lines for kingdom demarcations are
Yeah,
very confusing. But that does seem like not a part of the map we've been in a lot, but a consequential part if you think about they would be the front line before the Shan Chan could get really into Andor. As you know, we know they are at least as far as Amador and Gildan,
yeah.
right? And so that's, we've got Altara, including Salidar, there in the middle, and then it's just Mirandi.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And at the beginning of this book, Perrin was talking about we're gonna get my wife and then immediately head east. East is straight into Murandy there,
Oh,
and
okay.
so I think that's kind of what you're exactly identifying. This is south of the Andor plot, north of the Ilion Ibudar plot, east of the Perrin plot. Like it's close to a lot of things that have been going on, and so it kind of has the potential to spill over into a bunch of different places.
I know. I was trying to think of some clever, witty joke about modern politics or something, or where this is, but nothing's ringing true. But
This makes way more sense than modern politics, Greg. Like that's
well,
just
I'll go to my other mainstay, which is like the American Revolution. This is when like everybody's gathering around Philadelphia and Yorktown and New Jersey, and you forget that all of those actually touch the Chesapeake Bay. You're like, oh right, those aren't
yeah.
far apart places; those are all right there. It's like this is the Chesapeake Bay in that scheme. Is the if we can
Yeah.
control that and so on. So anyway, we don't have to go into Revolutionary Hour. That's the next podcast I'm taping.
Three assassins show up. Elayne almost dies. Dylan almost dies. Some dude saves her out of nowhere. I'm
Kevin
immediately
Millar.
suspicious.
Oh no, it's not Kevin Millar. My Red Sox fandom from 15 years ago, probably at this point, showing through.
20.
But 2020. Oh
It's the
yeah.
20th anniversary. Yeah.
um, so I'm going to give my reaction in this moment. I was like, ooh, cool, a new badass hero. Like this is gonna be great to have a new ally, and seemed really pretty cool that it's like an unassuming, and like the maid gets to act a little heroically.
Yeah.
I like the way Elayne recognizes she's like, oh, I was very stupid just now, and
Yeah.
that all. So it totally works at the end, and I left this thinking like, well, she's not going to be kidnapped or perish, but I think thank God these lowly people have saved her, which is I think exactly what Robert Jordan wanted.
Yeah, I think my one takeaway here is this is one of the better written action sequences by Robert Jordan. Like, I followed everything that was happening. I got a good chuckle out of throwing the chair. Like, I have no objections here. And normally when we talk about these action sequences, I'm like, I could have used less. This was right. It worked for me. Any big picture thoughts on a cup of tea, which is a weird sentence to say, before we dive into the next chapter?
I would say I left this like satisfied, right? Like
Yeah.
again, it felt like there was more going on here than when she crossed the city, but like it was all pretty understandable. And our conversation confirms, even as a kind of novice, I am not smart enough for this reader. I could tell what was accurate rumor and not accurate rumor, and I think sometimes in our quest here, we sometimes forget to like give credit that that's really hard, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure I've used this analogy before, but my wife and I, back when we were tenants, we would forget that just by like paying our rent on time every month, we were better than like 90% of renters, right?
Yeah.
And there's a way in which like we tease Robert Jordan about that last 10% when things don't quite work, that we forget that like it's pretty good that we're not asking questions about this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So
No,
I'll
that's a
give
really
him
good
that
call.
shout out, because I'm sure the discussion of the next chapter will be a lot of me being like, and who is this, and what is this, and why do I care? So we'll deal with the 10%.
I can answer the who and the what, but the why should I care is really up to you, Greg. In chapter 10, a plan succeeds. Elayne wakes afraid and then is thrilled because she can touch Sidar. Dylan has apparently been healed, and Elayne was treated by Nynaeve, but with herbs, not with the power. Nynaeve says that Elayne should wait to channel, but Elayne channels immediately. Elayne says that Dylan has proven her loyalty, and then Avienda insists that Elayne has very little toe to Dylan, despite Elayne saying that she owes her. Avienda now knows who Birgitta is and is part of that very limited group, and they discuss discuss the elaborate assassination attempt, which apparently involved a poison that is made of peach pits. It's worth noting peaches are poison in this world for some reason. Brigitte jumps on this as a reason to expand Elayne's guard, and Elayne asks about Millar, the man who saved her. Elayne decides that he will be the captain of her newly appointed bodyguards, and Elayne will make the assassination attempt public, but keep the poison secret to try to catch someone who knows something that they shouldn't. Nynaeve then says that she will see Egwene alone tonight, but Elayne refuses and says that she needs to go. Aviendha says that Brigitte needs to act more like a warder like Lan, and they start sniping at one another. Nynaeve then breaks the tension, saying that Elayne will go, and Nynaeve decides to go to her own room before she enters Teleron-Riode. Aviendha and Brigitte start sniping at Nynaeve, which seems to bring them together a little bit, and then Elayne quickly enters Teleron-Riode. Elayne promises the queens of the past that she will live up to their standards, and Egwene arrives hearing the end of this, as Nynaeve says that she hopes Egwene doesn't find something out about the assassination attempt. This surprises Egwene, because of course she heard she shouldn't hear about something, and she says that she would call them back to the tower if she could, but she knows that if she brought the kin, it would undo all of the gains that she's had politically. The Hall is apparently already fighting about the older novices and trying to bring that back, and then Egwene mentions a grandmother named Sharina, who Nynaeve apparently knew during her novice test, and Nynaeve seems shaken by the mention of this particular name. Egwene says that she supports the three oaths, and Elayne says that the oaths may actually be what cut the lifespans of the Aes Sedai relative to the kin, and Egwene proposes that Aes Sedai should be able to remove their oaths and retire as members of the kin. Egwene brushes off all of Nynaeve's objections and then moves on to other issues. Egwene says that Halima is keeping her headaches at bay, and then they spot a man who seems to be watching them, who Egwene says looked like Rand's mean uncle and was dressed like a Borderlander. Elayne smiles and says that something good will come of today after all. We then switch into Asne's POV, who avoids conversing with Chesmal. Chesmal keeps bragging about crimes that she has committed, and then Eldrith arrives, apparently very late. Eldrith was the cause of them vacating their last safe house when she got into a very violent relationship with a man. Tamail then enters, and Eldrith says that she has been to Teleron-Riode and she has been spying. She says that she thinks Nynaeve is the one who injured Moghedien, and so they have no chance against Nynaeve, but Tamail says that Eldrith must complete their mission because Moghedien says it was important. Asne then feels her warders approaching and knows that she can use the Balefire Rod if she needs to. Finally, we switch into the Lady Shiane's perspective, who we learn used to be known as Millie Skane, who demands that Phaleon get her more wine. Shiane says that Moradin chose that Phaleon be a servant, and so she must obey. Morillon, who is not Moradin, Morillon has instructions from Moghedien, but Shiane says that the orders were actually for Morillon to obey her, and she was told this by Moradin, so she knows that it is true. Morillon reports that there is a Black Aja somewhere in the palace who is giving her intelligence, and at this point Daved Hanlon enters and announces that he is now the head of the Queen's Guard, and his plan went even better than he expected. So, a plan succeeds, but for who, Greg? For who?
Millar.
I think that question might be for whom.
For whom is correct. Millar. And that's the entirety of my notes. Millar! Exclamation point, exclamation point. Right? But he has a different name. So what I was trying to allude to without spoiling the second chapter is this entirely worked for me. That I was like, yeah, heroic dude. And then I was immediately, when this revelation comes, I was like, oh, of course. It was so easily overcome, but, you know, I thought it was really, there was enough complexity to it that it was believable, which means it was just an excellent plan to put him where he needs to be. So that's very interesting. I think I will confess already, I struggled the most with the middle portion because I was like, who are these people? Like,
correct.
It's like they're just here and I don't know these names and I'm just going to read these. And you tripped over one of the M names, which is just a reminder there are too many M names. And correct. So I was like, which one is this and which one is that? So I think this would best be summed up as this was a chapter I could tell had important stuff in it, but I don't know that I got the important stuff other than that one revelation.
I'll be honest, I don't think there's much important stuff in that middle POV, but we'll get to that when we get there. Let's take this chronologically, because I think you're right. The big, surprising moment comes at the end and it's really well earned, but there's some stuff before that that is worth diving into. Um, the most important of which, obviously, is the fact that Nynaeve didn't use healing on Elayne. Don't you have like 5 minutes to say about that, Greg? No,
Boo. I don't know.
I think that the first thing that really stood out to me in this chapter is the fact that we get two characters who have had very little interaction up to this point suddenly thrust into very close quarters. So that's Avienda and Birgitta, who are both very close to Elayne, are both working very closely with Nynaeve, but haven't actually been in the same place at the same time very much at all up until very recently. And so seeing them kind of like trying to figure out who they are to each other, seeing Avienda now maybe feeling more comfortable in like teasing or pushing Brigitte now that she knows the truth about who she is, and just in general seeing them falling into the same annoying Robert Jordan thinks that women can't be friends without sniping at each other rut. Like, all of that kind of plays into the fact that we have a new dyad here, even if it's, stereotypical for no reason.
I mean, I was immediately thinking of when you have a high school friend come stay the weekend in your dorm and you're negotiating your roommate who's now your friend, so maybe it's sophomore year, and it's like, okay, I'm really close to both of you. You might not like each other. Like, let's see how this goes and figure this out.
And I think...
But sorry, then I was just going to add the stupid thing, so it's a good thing I interrupted, that I continuously with Robert Jordan go back to the Family Guy Star Wars parody. Have I made this reference? Yes.
I think years ago.
Yeah, so when you get to Return of the Jedi, and it's always the Family Guy characters doing a parody of Star Wars, and Mon Mothma walks out, and all the male characters are like, holy crap, another woman, and Lois as Leia goes like, I don't like her. and it just feels like that's Robert Jordan's understanding of women.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the really frustrating thing is if his female characters just argued with each other about anything, it would at least pass the Bechdel test. But they're always arguing about a dude, so it never passes the Bechdel test. So, Robert Jordan, do better 20 years after your death, I guess. I don't really have too much else here. I do just love the weird random detail that of all of the things that are the same about our world and the world of the Wheel of Time, that peaches are poison. I think, tell me if I'm wrong about this, this is actually a little bit based in like plant biology, where stone fruit they come from like a part of the plant that is both male and female. And so I believe that peaches are poisoned because the male half of the power is poisoned. And so plants that are the male part will kill you.
I didn't know there would be a botany exam this afternoon, but I can't confirm or deny that, but there's a logic to it that makes sense. And my mind goes back to the oft forgotten fact that this is our world. So then I was like, my mind went more to, was there like a biological weapon that tainted the peaches? But yours makes much more sense, which is there's a male power tainting them. So I don't know. We shall see, or it'll never come up again. One or the other.
It'll probably never come up again. I just think peaches are fun. I would then like to draw our attention to this new bodyguard that Elayne is having assembled around her. So, number one, we know that Melar is in charge, and that's going to end badly according to the end of this chapter. But it seems like a lot of time is devoted to it seems like this bodyguard will primarily be women so that people overlook them. It seems like there's a lot of debate about how many people should be in the bodyguard, about who should be leading them, and this gets pages of discussion. So I don't know in what way Elayne's bodyguard will be crucial, but I can tell you they'll mean something. This is Chekhov's bodyguard at this point. What are we thinking about the threats that Elayne is going to be facing if we're emphasizing her protection this much?
I mean, in some ways it felt like it could, at this point when reading it, it felt like it could have been an overreaction because there was an attack. I mean, this is very common in history as well, right? Like a leader gets a serious threat to their life and then, doubles up their protection, separates themselves more from the people. You would imagine she wouldn't go walking through the city unless she had this huge phalanx of guards. It felt important to me that it's drawn from a few sources, but especially at this part of the chapter, it was like, well, this is probably just a whole bunch of people who will be yada yada'd into every scene, or they're always outside the doors, or what have you.
Oh, if you think they'll be yada yada instead of having 8 more names you need to learn, Greg, you haven't learned how Robert Jordan works.
So then when we get to the revelation at the end of the chapter, it's like, okay, then eventually there's going to be like a loyalty question, it would seem, right? Like, how influential can Millar be in getting all of this guard? And there were some parts of the guard that don't sound particularly close to Elayne, together. So, sounds like a powder keg, perhaps.
Just like a powder keg. I'm debating there are 2 ways we could go through this. Let's actually just do it purely in chronological order. Let's move on to Elayne and Nynaeve enter Teleron Riode. Elayne has kind of a touching moment where she's in the hall of the queens in Teleron Riode and makes a pledge to her mother, and then immediately Egwene shows up. And I'll be honest, I forgot Egwene was in this book. I thought she was on vacation, but I guess she shows up here a little bit. So what did we think about the arrival of Egwene and some of the news that we start getting? It's not a lot of updates, but we hear a little bit about Tower politics, which, as you've said, have really taken the back seat for a while now.
Well, I do also want to just put a lantern on. It's kind of a sweet moment when they lay down together to sleep, and like they've just been through something, and it's like they have to physically unite and kind of both hold the ring is kind of how it is, or be something together like that, in some regard. So it's like, after all their bickering, let's have a good cuddle. And what is marriage except for that? So then when they get there, I mean, how many times do they have to realize they're not alone in like endlessly? And I think you left this out of your summary, but it was a little moment I clocked, which is Elayne sees somebody sitting on the throne, and then that person pops away. And she's like, oh, even simple maids dream of sitting on the throne, which is an interpretation that makes sense. But then you're also like, there's somebody here trying to kill you. Like, there's a large faction. Like, what if that's not just a simple maid's daydream, but,
Forsaken also dream of sitting on thrones.
of that. So that to me felt, I kind of made the mental note of like, remember that, because I bet later that will matter. And then, of course, the like, what won't I be happy to hear? It's like, guys, you're listened to every time here. You're not alone. Like, I don't think I can take plots and revelations about them not realizing that for the umpteenth time. The 2 here are kind of silly versions of that, like that line from Egwene, and then the confirmation later that the evil people have heard what's being said here. But like, it's like, I really don't want them to get ambushed in Teleron Riode again, because at this point they're just idiots if that happens again.
I mean, they're idiots. Let's be clear about that. I want to talk a little bit about the new revelation that Egwene gives us about her plans for the kin, right? Because this is all new, and it actually gives their theory about a resolution to a mystery that we've had since book 2, right? So we have this new theory. I think Elayne says it, but they all seem to have kind of taken it as for granted now. The kin live to be upwards of 800 years old. Aes Sedai die in their upper 300s at the absolute oldest, like Cadsuan is maybe 400. The girls all seem convinced that this is because the 3 oaths make you die sooner, that something about being bound by the oaths makes you live less long. And so Egwene's solution to this new discovery seems to be, when you become an Aes Sedai, you take the oaths. When you are done being an Aes Sedai, you remove the oaths, and then you retire and become a part of the kin, presumably to live another several hundred years, because your life is now no longer being shortened by the oath rod. So this is a bunch of new info. What did you think about this discussion?
Well, and just clarify for me, somebody who is the kin is living that long because they have the power. They have the skills.
Exactly. So people who can channel the one power naturally live longer, and it seems like the kin are living to the kind of maximum natural lifespan of a woman who can channel, right? 800 years, and then something about the three oaths is shortening that lifespan, even though they're still living much longer than a human who can't channel.
And how would Aes Sedai face be involved there? Right? Like
Yeah,
the
so
yeah.
this is presumably the Aes Sedai face, which is something that Aes Sedai have, but wise ones don't have, and Damane don't have, and other channelers don't have. It is presumably something that is being caused by taking the three oaths.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't know that the theory feels a little simple to me, and I kind of think, if you're this isn't exactly right, but like if you're a police officer, like unfortunately your life expectancy goes down because you have a very dangerous line of work. And if you went to the police academy, but then you're like, you know what, I think I'm just going to go make shoes, then you become a cobbler and you have a long life as a cobbler without the same risks. We'll just pretend cobblers don't have like chemicals they have to deal with or anything. So it feels to me like assuming it's the oaths feels a little risky. But then when I metagame it, and it feels like a fantasy author doesn't really introduce something like this just to be like, and they were all wrong, and it was silly. Yeah. So it kind of feels like I should accept this as the rules. And your explanation helps me because in this I was kind of like, wait, why do the kin hate the Aes Sedai and figuring it out and so on? So it's interesting to me that the goal then would be to let the women live to be 800. I don't know, call me old-fashioned, but I feel like 300 should do, and you'd be fine, but maybe I'm wrong.
This is actually a good place for me to call attention to one line from like 7 books ago that I really wanted to call out and couldn't at the time. Very, very early on in this series, I think it's Lanfear, maybe it's Moghedien. One of the female Forsaken is talking to Egwene or Nynaeve, one of the girls, and she says something like, you all use binders and limit your lifespans like common criminals. And I think that's a reference to the oath rod was probably once given to criminals to be like, oh, you're a rapist, your oath is that you can never like have sex again or something like that and stop them from committing any more crimes. And so this kind of fits with that one line in particular. Is I can finally talk about that is really all I've got there.
I mean, that's helpful, and again suggests we should just take this. You're telling me in no uncertain terms this is just a rule of this world. So that's interesting. And then Lanfear would be another example of somebody who can channel and isn't bound by any oaths, right? And would this also suggest that the Black Aja could live forever compared to normal Aes Sedai?
So one thing to remember is that the Black Aja seem to replace their 3 oaths with other oaths so that they still have the Aes Sedai face. So presumably they would also have the shortened lifespan.
Okay. Interesting. New mythology. Sounds good, but doesn't sound like an answer has been reached in terms of Egwene's like policies, and certainly anything like this would have to go through the council, and sounds like it would be an uphill battle.
Exactly, right? And in fact, Egwene at one point is like, I'd love to have you here helping me, but I can't afford to have the kin here starting this fight. Like, she's really confident she would lose the fight if it started now. So, throughout this chapter, 2 people seem to be spying on Egwene, Elayne, and Nynaeve in their discussion. You've already identified one, Lady on Throne. I have a theory that Lady on Throne is actually one of the Aes Sedai from the next POV. We also have another person who is watching them, who Egwene refers to as Rand's angry uncle, wearing borderland clothing. Any thoughts on who that could be?
I mean, I guess I immediately assumed an Ashaman, but I don't know, like the borderland clothing, we haven't had somebody been like there. So, I mean, we also just learned there's an army coming from the borderland, right? So, like, is someone up there a part of the Ashaman? I mean, I guess you don't need the power to go to Teleron Rio.
You don't. And in fact, I'm fairly confident this person does not have the power. Description of someone who looks like Rand and is wearing Borderland clothes is probably a very good fit for Slayer / Lord Luke.
And
And I
this
think
is
there's
the
a decent
missing,
chance.
right? This is the missing Lord? The missing.
The
No.
missing.
Sorry. I
No.
interrupted. Who
this
was
is
the
from-
missing guy?
Who is the missing guy?
There was like a brother. Is this the brother? It was like somebody's brother was
yes.
lost
So
and presumed
this is-
lost.
This is both of the missing guys. So
Oh, okay.
remember, Luke was, I guess, Rand's actual mother's brother who vanished in the waste before his mother ran away. And then there was also Isam, who was Lan's cousin, who was lost to the waste. And those two seem to in some way have slayered. And that's basically
Okay.
the entire level of detail we have about that character at this point.
And that this is potentially a description of that person.
I think so.
And when you say Rand's real mother, you mean his Aiel mother.
Well, his Andoran royal mother who ran away to the waste and then lived as a member of
right.
the Aiel, but who was not actually Aiel. Yeah, this gets really complicated.
The one that he came from her stomach, his biological mother.
That one. Yes.
Yes. And we shouldn't, I do not mean to imply that his adopted mother is
Of
not
course.
also his real
Carrie
mother.
Althor
That
is absolutely his real mother. I did not want to imply otherwise.
Yes. So, apologies to any listeners who were offended by that.
No one was. I mostly just wanted to point out two watchers, and I think we actually have decent theories about both of them. Any last thoughts on the Elayne POV section?
Well, don't just lose the fact that Elayne, like, sees this person and is like, oh, this is a good day then. And, like, this is a day where she almost got stabbed. So, like, the fact that she seems to know who this is, or maybe Rand has foretold that somebody's coming to help or something. But, I mean, it's all pointing towards then that maybe it's correct that this army coming is meant to help and could be a positive force in this. So interested to see where that develops.
Yeah, that was the thing that immediately jumped into my mind as we began the chapter thinking about the Borderland army moving through the country, and we end the chapter with someone kind of in a Borderland uniform. And so I'm immediately thinking, like, what has she realized about that army moving through her country that she thinks can help her win this conflict? I think you're, spot on with that. Then we jump to the part of the chapter that's a bunch of names that Greg didn't remember. And I'll be honest, I didn't remember them either until Chesmal showed up and I went, oh yeah, these are all the Black Aja ladies who were important in book 2 and then were just the ones with Leandrin for 3 books and then vanished. But here they are, I guess, doing things. And I have no real details here.
They're not in Teleron Riod for this conversation, to our knowledge.
One of them says they were in Teleron Riod recently, and then starts talking about Nynaeve and her theories. So this is why my guess is that woman was either the one on the throne or someone else who was, like, watching them from the shadows.
And then they say they're getting information from a Black Aja in Caemlyn.
In the palace, yeah.
In the palace, thereby implying that they aren't in the palace, right? That we probably shouldn't place them in Caemlyn. They're somewhere else, maybe at the tower. I think they'd
probably be in the city of Caemlyn, but not in the palace, or maybe the inner city was kind of my read based on that.
Okay, and then, bad ladies doing bad things. There are forces coordinating these efforts. These aren't random attacks on Elayne.
Yeah, I think the only other 2 notes that I have here to just keep in mind is, 1, these women are, like, questionably following Moghedien at this point. They seem to have, like, lingering orders from her that they'd rather finish than not, but they're kind of free agents, it seems like, at this point. And then the other thing worth noting is that Asne apparently has the balefire rod, so that's a thing that we should just be keeping track of when it's going to explode. Final
Chekhov's
POV.
balefire rod. Right?
I'm mad that we made that joke earlier in this episode because it is correct to apply it right here.
But wait, before you go to the final POV, wait, what did you say just before you said the balefire rod? You said
debatably following Moghedien's orders.
Oh, and Moghedien, is the one that was with the women. She's alive. Moghedien is alive, is basically my question. She ran off.
Yes, she is the one who was captured in the Adam, was held prisoner by Egwene and those at the Saladar Tower, and then was eventually set free, and we learned, I think at the beginning of the last book, is now working for Moradin.
And Moradin gets name checked here, and always just remember Moradin as the big baddie who's not a Forsaken, but is something other.
Yeah, he's the new baddie that seems to be kind of on a higher level. That's exactly right. Yep. I think at the beginning of this book, one of the Forsaken refers to him as potentially being Nabliss, which was the, like, higher than the highest Forsaken that we had heard described in previous books. So, in this last section, we basically have two important names we need to get into our heads here. One is Lady Shiane, seems to be the one running the kind of dark in this part of the country in Andor. We learned that she was formerly known as Millie Skane, which is a fun little reference to like the first two books where there was like an old lady dark friend who was in charge of intelligence who was named Millie Skane. So she's moved up in the world. But other than that, like, she's evil. She is controlling some of the former Black Aja who are now just servants. And it's worth noting, at the end of the chapter, we learn that the new head of Elayne's guard is Daved Hanlon, who was previously a part of Raven's guard when he ran Caemlyn. And after that, Daved Hanlon ran off to all of the rebels in Brame Wood, where he was also with Padden Fane until Book 7, when that was broken up.
Okay, got it. Check.
Yeah, those are names you should know. That's really all I've got from this POV.
I mean, in the end, then, I think if this is the end, this is back to your question you asked before we started these chapters. If this is the end of the Elayne plotline, there's certainly enough dangling here that's of interest. Some of the things, I think this Borderlands thing that seems to be coming together, that's more interesting to me. I'm fitting your narrative. Well, finally, we're getting some men in this plot line, and so I like this more. But
Greg
I do
forgot that 3 of the 4 rulers of the Borderlands are women, so that really makes my point.
All right. So I'm a little more interested in that. I do not think this has been completely compelling, but we still have the mystery, which I think you referred to as the Agatha Christie plot of who's the killer here. And so that's really interesting, but I'm ready to go other places. I have other characters I want to meet and see. Although you just pretty much told me we're not going to see Egwene the rest of this book.
Yeah, I kind of did. That's a thing. We've got 2 chapters this coming week. That is Chapter 11, Ideas of Importance, and Chapter 12, A Lily in Water. This is pushing our usual page limit. I think in my edition of the book, it's something like 48 or 49 pages. So we're on the long side. Greg is giving me the eye right now.
Looks like 48 in mine. That's what I was checking out, because I had assumed we were going to do one, but it's summer. Everybody's at the beach, and you all are working through this diligently in your own time. So might as well get 2 in since it's on the border. And in the meantime, we are cruising through this book already. So start securing book 10. And man, we're basically done. When do we wrap up? No, it's a while still. But will this continue apace, or might things get more exciting next week? I don't know why Tylor keeps using the word slog. Next time, through the glass columns.